Hello everyone, and I am back for the next round. Let's see what palette we have in store for us today from the Color Cube #2 from Sarah Renee. Let's open it up and see what palette we can come up with. We picked up a few, but that's the one on the top. It looks like we are going to use palette 278 from Color Cube 2. Let's see what the colors are. Flame, some of those darker oranges, salmon, steel blue, bondi blue, and sky blue. Oh, if we got any Florida Gator fans watching, I know I have one, then it looks like we're going to be into the Florida Gator colors of blues and oranges. But let's see what I come up with. This is actually a pretty good picture here. Could use it for inspiration. But let me go gather as many art supplies as I can that could fit into this color. Pick one or two to go with, or three, and see what I come up with. And we'll be right back. I have gone and I have tried to grab as many, mainly watercolors, a couple of crayons that I'm going to try out to work with this palette of 278. Again, the colors are flame, salmon, steel, bondi blue, and sky blue. What I did come up with is these are basically water-soluble cold wax crayons. These are some of the more expensive ones that you could get. So I did go and grab my Artist Loft, which is the same thing, water-soluble cold wax crayons, and could maybe see how one versus the other works out. My main palette that I'm using is from these Gansai Tambi watercolors. This is their Art Nouveau palette. So as you can see, we've got some really good blues here. We've got an orange that I could probably start trying to make lighter so that it goes to that orange and a little bit of that salmon. See how nicely this all is going to play in there? And then I grabbed some Daniel Smith watercolors. I've got his Cad Red medium hue. And I'm going to see how this Quin Deep Gold can be mixed in to change the color around. We'll see. And I have grabbed several flats and rounds. We'll see how we go from there. So I've got my palette for watercolors. And then in case, I've got my Sennelier watercolors. They've got a nice orange family here. And then they also do have some Payne's Gray and black that if I need to use that too. I may grab acrylic inks in black and white. But right now, what I think I want to do is more of a wash in blues across. If I can do some here, and while this is drying, go back and maybe do some oranges and the orange tones up here, or if I'm going to have to go grab the hairdryer, we shall see. Let's get started. I've taken some of these out already from the Art Nouveau palette. This is Vermilion, and this is a grayish blue. This is a cobalt turquoise light, and this is a pale aqua. And then just in case to see if I want to mix things up, this is an ecru beige, and this is their pale pink. Always have your water bottle. Go ahead and get them activated. And now, like I said, I want to try an experiment. Let's go ahead and grab, this is a Neocolor 2 from Ush. It's a water-soluble wax pastel in Vermilion. So actually, I don't want to do that yet because yellow and blue are complementary colors. On the color wheel, blue would be here and orange would be here. So they complement each other. But if they mix, they become mud. So I don't want to put down the orange quite yet because I'm afraid of what I'm going to get. So let's instead go back a little bit to turquoise. And then this one is cobalt blue, turquoise blue. Since they're water soluble, as soon as the water hits them, they will have some activation. I'm just going to make some funky marks down here. Use these because, again, these come from Michaels, and they are a little bit more budget friendly. So that would sort of match up with that one. Let's go over here with it. A little bit darker, coming out with some thicker lines also. So I'm going to be painting basically a wash. First, I think, with this of the darker blues. This is the grayish blue. I think I'm going to do a wet on wet to start on this. That means I'm going to wet this surface down a little bit. See how it's already activating the water-soluble crayons? And then let's start doing this. You got to sort of act a little bit fast, even though I'm not really going to care if I get hard lines. We're going to do a little bit more here. We'll see what we start coming up with, and if I'm going to start layering the different blues on top, because that can work. So now I'm going to grab this next one, which is the cobalt turquoise. Let's get some of this going. And now what I also need to do is clean my brush off. We need to start activating down here a little bit with water so that this is getting ready to do wet on wet. So that means I'm just wetting the watercolor paper, the substrate. So you can see it's getting some different. You can go back. Always go back and go up. See if these can blend a little bit together. It's very meditative to just back and forth this. May have been a complete mistake to do these circles and lines, but we'll see. This is just the starting layer. There's so much more that can be done. I'm going to stick with this one. I've got an idea of something that I'm going to want to do. And just let it flow. Go with it. Let your arm just go where it wants to go. And this is that light blue, that pale, pale blue. Take it around. And this is pretty wet. This is going to be a little bit more darker on it. And then did you see the water splatting on there? I'm just going to do a wash of this light blue over everything. This may not stay like this, and that's okay. I'm just playing around at this point. You can see that swirl has sort of deadened itself a little bit. It's really not seen anymore. And it's starting to almost look like some hills going on here. That's drying down there, so you can see it's getting a little bit of the brush texture in it. I think. There's two waveforms. Sometimes it looks like this, and then when it gets to be time that it's dried, it looks nothing. I like that that's got that darker. See what happens. Again, this is now wet, so these are the Neo colors. Where is that other one? So again, this is the Artist Loft darker one. It's making lines. This is just one thing right now. They don't have to be married to it. Some of them, the ones that I put on first from the Quran Dosh, are lighter. And it's these ones that are from the Artist Loft that are really sticking their ground here and staying dark into the forefront. Let's go ahead. I've got a big round here. What happens? I'm taking this beige, bring it over on my palette. Let me see if I can put this up a little bit better for you guys to see. Really wetting this up, putting that on there. Ooh, that is a little bit of a sea green. Put a little bit more blue in there. A little bit on that darker, still blue. And again, you can always just go ahead and paint over everything. I'm going to try one more thing. Add some water to it and dots. So you could actually go and make dots And they're gonna leave these little, I think they're called cauliflowers. Some people like them, some people hate them. A faster drying area down here. Okay, so got a lot of the blue on here, which I wanted as this first layer. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go get my little hair dryer, and I'm going to try and see if I can speed up the drying here, and then we'll go from there. All right, and I'm back. I used my little hair dryer and took some time to really try and get this nice and dry. There's still a little bit of a wet piece over there, so I'll probably keep sticking my hand in it. Now, make sure the pink and the orange are ready to go. What do I want to play with you? Okay, I'm going to use a flat. So this is a 1.5 flat. Get a little wet. Here's my palette. So I'm going to try and see what happens. It's still on the pink side, but what happens when I just add a touch? Aha! There's our salmon. There we go. All right, looks like I got salmon. All right, so how do I want to do the salmon? This is all dry. Let's just go ahead and I'm going to start making some marks here. Starting out with some squares. Seeing what they look like over this blue. Remember, I told you that orange and blues are complementary, but when they're combined together, they can get muddy. So we may see some darkening of this. So I'm going to just try and do some over here. I'm just making some arcs. See what happens. Just go ahead and let some of these marks figure themselves out. Now I could have done some more water, and so that when these like ended up kissing on each other, they would flow into each other. But I didn't do it that way. That's okay. Let's do another one here. These lighter colors down. This is all just having fun. What comes into mind. And let's do a little smaller one here. Not the end of the world if this ends up not looking the greatest. And so some of that blue that's in here is actually starting to tinge this a little bit. So that's why it's getting a little dirty. All right. Let's see. That orange really take over a little bit, but I'm going to add some water to it. See if we can have a part that's a little bit more watered down on this palette. A little bit more of a watercolor wash. All right, let's see what happens when I add this in. Not too much darker. And again, because this is wet, even though I've dried it, it's activating the watercolor underneath it. I'm just going to see how it's now going to go after that water. And it's going to puddle in there. Now I'm doing more of just seeing what it can do. So I did a wet circle, and then I took some of the wet of the watercolor, and I'm dabbing it in there, so it's going to start to let itself explode and float around and do whatever it wants to do, given the contours and the caving in and the buckling of the watercolor paper. A little bit darker. Not quite as dark as that vermilion. Could be an amoeba. End up looking like. A circle. I'm tending to go right for the pure tangerine on this one. Now remember, it's got those blue cold press wax crayons underneath it. Let some of that blue stick out there. Okay. Now I'm just pretty much going where I'm just feeling like I want to go. So it's definitely going to be more on the abstract side now, isn't it? Looks almost like it's a meteor coming in, shooting into the ocean. Sort of do look like aliens, but then, you know, if you look at the card, doesn't it look sort of like alien landscape down there too? There's something else I want to do in here. And just layer on layer. So, you know, even as these start to dry, and that one's going to take a while to dry, you can start to like actually do layer upon layer of the colors. As one layer dries, put some more of the same colors and maybe different shades, and then do another layer and play around with another shade, or bringing the blues back in. It just ends up allowing it to have a lot of different texture, a lot of play. That's going to definitely, you can see it's got that lightness behind it, and then the darker layer. I'll just put this down here. So that they sort of look like stones. Not every single one has to be filled in. And a small one up here, so but I make sure that there's just something from here up here, trying to balance it. So a square should probably, if I wanted to, put a square down here. So this is just a regular old 6 from Artist Loft. Good old Michaels. Just put something in some of these water spots that we made. They look like little dendrites coming off. And again, I have to have every single one colored in. Remember, you can move the paper around. It does not have to stay in one place. Sometimes now, what would it be really, really smart is to let this dry a little bit more. Look exactly like that? No, but sort of just trying to give that idea of it. Dendrites and jellyfish legs, and whatever those flowers are. I mean that it has to look perfect. Trying to give a sense of those little jellyfish flowers or whatever we're seeing out there. And if I was more patient right now, I would probably be waiting until everything was dry to be doing this better. Intrigued with how that is coming out. Good old cat hair. What would my life be without cat hair getting into one of my projects? Just using this to make some patterns coming out. Not even like full petals, just letting them kind of fly where they want to fly. Some of it's dry, some of it's still wet. So we've got some orange that's really coming out on this. Go ahead. Now we're going to come back here for a little bit. Do something, and if you like it, you keep it. If you don't have to. Paint over it. Add to it. And you see what you see. It's very different for me to just let things go with the flow. This takes a lot for me to not get upset that I'm, oh no, I'm making a mess, or it's horrible, and who the heck wants to see this? I don't have to show it to anybody if I don't want to. After I do this, and all of y'all see it, it may never come out of this booklet ever again. That may still be wet, but what happens if some darker on it now? I'm trying to think where else. I like how that came out. Maybe black or something on there. We'll see. Or you know what? I may actually keep my word and just let things go. Let it be what it wants to be for this. That's okay. It was still wet. So it's a little muddy, but that blue's mixing in now with that orange. They're sort of going back and forth over here. Let's do a turquoise. See what happens if I do turquoise. I'm just sort of playing with this because now, sort of like, what happens if I just do all these strokes and let them go and dry? Are they going to look like maybe background depth to it? Seeing another part of the under ocean shelf or something going on. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. I might have to come in and do some more darker. Try it around here. So just pretty much dabbing. And try not to get into this wet orange part because that would be silly of me. So trying to control myself. No fancy technique. I'm just seeing what happens if I dab around here. So we're just going to paint over it a little bit more. I'm going to put a darker edge here, letting things, it's wet here. So letting it move. Now I'm pushing it and tapping into some of this darker blue with this turquoise that I came in here a little bit ago. Mixing a little bit with the orange. I went back to that little salmon mixture. Let's put in another layer in here. Oh, that was too wet. And I've had the blue come in here. I'm going to let this dry and then see what I want to come and do. Not really looking too much underground water, but a little bit. I mean, we got some darker going on, we got some orange, but it's still very abstract. There's nothing about this that really is reality based in capturing what the palette color had as an inspiration. It is what it is at the moment. So let's get it to dry and we can come back and see if I want to take it any further or if I just want to let it be for the moment.
trying to see if this is recording or not, because what ended up happening was I let it go and I came back and decided I wanted to do some sponge stamping and mark making and using some of the bubble wrap. So you see me getting the tangerine a little bit ready here, and I am putting the sponge in there and just starting to dab around the paper and see what we can get going on here. Doing more of the paint, dabbing around. It really wasn't picking up that well, but I kept at it, went straight for the paint from the pan, and that helped a little bit getting it darker, and kept going around the page just to try and spread out any kind of markings that I could find here. Still going ahead and stamping. Then decided, okay, I'm going to go for a little bit more direct paint going on there and darker colors to put another layer on those original marks that I made, just trying to give a little bit more depth and life to them. So again, always remember to turn the page around, look at what you're working on from a different viewpoint. And that started me to decide, okay, let's just make some marks. Let's see if we can make some flowers or go a little bit on that sponge amoeba kind of looking thing. And was moving things around, trying to make more layers with more marks over some previous marks that I had already done with this darker tangerine vermilion color. And just really started to just have fun taking it across the page. And you don't realize how much time actually starts to just lose track of it, because you're just having fun putting marks all over the place, going to circles or just some little strikes, and then just doing some dabs and jabs there. And so now this was where I went ahead and I grabbed the bubble wrap. So a little bit of just trying to use some of that wet paint that I was already doing there. I believe I also did go back and get some water on some of the watercolor paper, and I'm just pressing it down. And then all right, so we are definitely having a lot of technical difficulties here. So time went by. I actually did some white marks and with that white crayon, and I decided I wanted to come back and work a little bit more on the white, make some more marks that I was coming up with in my mind. And just letting you know that I did take some water and ended up putting that over some of those white crayon markings to help lighten it up and leave some nice and darker on the white. But I started to think of something was emerging, the light coming down, and it started to look like a reef with fish in it, and angelfish, or in this case, goldfish that look like angelfish. So I wanted to grab my micron pens, graphite, brush level, and an 8, and then I had my Jelly Roll black gel pen. So I decided I was going to start off with that gel pen, have some white Posca and the No Bleed white and acrylic white ink hanging around if I wanted to even go back and do more white. But I decided to go ahead and start out with just the Jelly Roll black pen, and I decided let's make some fish. So that's what we're going to do here. We're taking this black Jelly Roll pen, and I'm outlining what was the abstract squares, and I'm making them into fish that look like they're starting to swim towards the light in the surface on top of the ocean that they're in. And so just making some borders, and then those blue crayon lines ended up being perfect to make stripes over. So using the black ink to just go in and outline, make some lines and stripes on these little fishies, make little black spots on them, give them centers to their eyes and those white spots. So just again, moving to each of these separate fish, now fish, and making sure that you can see their outlines and having fun just giving them some details, helping them start to come off the page as not squares anymore, but actual some whimsical fish that are living under the sea and having fun playing around that day, swimming around with their friends, the jellyfish around them, the different coral from the coral reefs that they can play with. So again, using those crayon strikes that I made originally to come back and put the black ink over them to make them stripes and markings on the fish. Decided, okay, I'm going to put a fourth one here. This is the leader of the pack, I guess. And he's swimming over this little jellyfish amoeba kind of thing that I made, and giving him some outline, helping him come forth and, forward on the paper, and giving him again his own set of stripes. So just setting about making the marks here, giving them markings, and having fun with it. You don't realize how much time is flying by when you're doing this, but it was really flying by, people. So just sitting here saying, okay, what else do I want to do? I'm pretty much thinking now I'm going to take those circles that I had originally made, painting with the orange, the light orange early on, and now I'm just going around and I'm outlining them in order to help give some definition. And again, I was thinking that this is some kind of like a jellyfish or amoeba that you're seeing, and so now giving some black dots and marks to it, just either markings, or it could be their feet. You just have fun and you start imagining and letting your mind and your imagination take you where it wants to go, giving definition, helping other things stick out on what is now becoming this coral reef, I guess you could say, and having things other than the fish and the coral, other little beings that are living there. So I grabbed the Micron pen because the graphite level 1 really ended up working a lot better than that jelly pen. So again, going in and redoing some of my marks because they were really light, because that jelly roll pen was having trouble moving through a lot of things. And now I've gone and decided, you know what, they need some tails. So just making some little tail fronds for them that are coming off, just to, also give some movement and motion to them so that they look like they're trying to maybe, swim up towards the light that they see on the surface of the water. And gave this one some more stripes, outlined their eye a little bit better, and just again going in, redoing some definition here with this better Micron graphite pen, and just coming in more stripes. Again, time is flying and I'm not realizing it. This is why this is like time-lapsed for you all, because I really got into making marks on this, but it was a lot of fun after a while, and I wanted to make them handsome and pretty little fish. So again, looking around, trying to figure out more marks, more definition, and seeing where I want to go, what I want to start, maybe trying to get it to come off the page a little bit more. And was this the point? There's a point where I decide that they need to have better looking tails. They needed to have a little bit more to their tails, but I think right now I am still going in and doing some marks and circles, moving things around so that, look at it a different way and see what you want to do with it. Something might come to mind when you change it around on your table. So still going back, redefining, because again, sometimes it would just fade. And this is where I started to add in more tail for them. They have to be handsome and pretty. They are nice fish in this coral reef, but you want them to stand out a little bit from their background. And going in, and I was now putting the black over the white dabs and lines that I had made during the night when I wasn't filming because I cheated. So now just going in again here too, putting in some more of definition for them. And I actually started to think that this sort of looked like an undersea beach ball. But hey, maybe they want to have an undersea beach ball. So we're finishing up. It's looking like the palette. I had fun with it. I hope you had fun too.